I have heard a rumour that purports to come from within the team that sorts the balance for points and rules that it has been submitted that many of the nerf penalties to the Adepta Sororitas are being undone. We don't know if these changes back will come in time for the March or thereabouts balance patch to Warhammer 40,000. At the start of 10th edition, Games Workshop had set up that there were 2 quarterly balance patches that would change points and 2 would change points and balance rules. However, they did not see this system as working and wanted to do full balance patches every 3 months, with additional tweaks here and there as new codex rules were released. The first quarter of 2025 may not be the changeover, this may still be points only, but I think that's unlikely given previous statements that 2025 is going to be the changing year. The more I dug into this rumour, the less it was helpful. Such is the way of rumours. The changes to the Adepta Sororitas may not happen in this quarter. Changes submitted is not the same as changes approved, so undoing any previous changes may be rejected. Which parts will be undone? I don't know for certain, but have some good conjecture. What I haven't been able to do is tie an employee to a chair and extract reliable testimony, because testimony gathered under duress is not reliable. So I will tell you more and give some scenarios for what can happen to those of us who play Adepta Sororitas. But you need to know, what happened to the Adepta Sororitas? What are these nerfs that are being undone? When the Adepta Sororitas Codex launched in summer 2024, the Adepta Sororitas were strong out of the gate, particularly with the Bringers of Flame detachment, which greatly enhanced an existing specialism of the Battle Sisters, strong close-range firepower. As more opposing codexes were released and points updated, the power of the Sororitas in competitive settings started to dwindle, dropping from 60%-ish win rate to about 52%. Not bad. Games Workshop likes to have the win rate between 45% and 55%. But Games Workshop had balance changes planned, and so in December, what basically happened was this. Hey, Miss Sororitas, you are doing well. Solid results. But the thing is, we need you to not be doing so well. It's not because you're a girl, nothing dodgy like that, no. You see the boy in the blue hat? And just generally dressed in blue? Well, he's the son of the school board treasurer, and we need the money. Your success is making him look bad. Now, we could help with the struggling child, or we can really stunt his competition. We decided, why not both? Some of the changes that were made were allegedly for internal balance, but knocking down one detachment does not bring the others up. The Bringers of Flame stratagems were gutted. Blazing Ire became 2 command points. This lets you disembark and shoot at an enemy in their turn with full effect. It's a strong stratagem and was very popular with Dominions and Retributors. Rites of Fire as a stratagem had its range changed to 6 inches when you're attacking an enemy on an objective. So you are disembarking very, very close. And any reactive moves or reactive shots that the enemy wants to do are now going to be in range. Cleansing Flames became 2 command points. This lets torrent weapons in your unit have devastating wounds. This brings it in line with the Space Marine Firestorm Assault Force immolation protocols. And it gets used sometimes on Dominions, sometimes on Retributors, but almost always on Seraphim. They have a lot of hand flamers. Most painfully, the Bringers of Flame detachment rule was changed from 12-inch range to 6-inch range. This stops the Seraphim from getting the bonus strength from Deep Strike, or whenever their pistols are more than 6 inches away. This is an extra sore point because the Firestorm Assault Force of the Space Marines has kept its 12-inch range. If our stratagems were being brought into line with theirs, why is our detachment rule now out of sync and worse than theirs? Another effect on the Bringers of Flame detachment was the change to Shield of Aversion. It is an effect against one enemy unit, it does not last for the phase. Orc players' Ard as Nails that reduces enemy wound rolls wasn't affected. Orc players remain Ard for the whole phase. Do let your doctor know if it lasts longer than that. So Bringers of Flame went from the most popular fiery detachment to the one the least played, mostly being overtaken by the Hallowed Martyrs and then also the Champions of Faith. The Army of Faith would have gotten better. It needs Miracle Dice and generates a few more, but it isn't as popular because of the penalties to our Miracle Dice that also came in December. Adepta Sororitas players get 1 Miracle Dice per battle round, not per player turn. This is halving the number of miracle dice you get from this route from 10 to 5. Another main way of getting miracle dice was when your units die. Every time a unit died, you got another miracle dice. Well, now it's 1 miracle dice per phase maximum when a unit dies. So if half your army dies in one phase, you get 1 miracle dice rather than, say, 6. Any chance of scoring more victory points and killing the enemy and using miracle dice to do that is now a lot harder because you don't have the miracle dice. The Triumph had a change. The Triumph of St. Catherine used to give you an extra miracle dice of a 6 at the start of each battle round. Now it changes the miracle dice you get at the start of a battle round into a 6, so you don't get an extra one. And it remains at its very high points cost of 250 points. There were all of these penalties, and in addition to that, points went up. The Castigator went from 160 points to 170 points. I was okay with that. And the Exorcist went up in points, which I am not okay with. 190 points to 210 points. For a random number of shots and a random amount of damage, and it's also getting close to the Triumph of St. Catherine in its number of points. As a result of all of these changes, the Adepta Sororitas win rate is about 42%. This week, it is on 36%. And worse, the number of players using Adepta Sororitas is way down. There are more Genestealer cult players than Sororitas players at the last few major 40k events. That is unheard of. And views on my channel are down on videos about the Adepta Sororitas, so it is having a real effect on me and my income. Ko-fi tips are greatly appreciated. A one-off tip of a few monies is wonderful, but people have commented that they're putting away their Sororitas armies for now, and so I have focused on Genestealer Cult with videos on the Final Day, the Brood Brothers Auxilia, Ascension Day, and the Biosanctuary Brood Surge. All of these have had detailed tactic videos with unit tier lists in the last 2 months, because there hasn't been an appetite for Sororitas advice videos. This is a problem that goes beyond competitive play, because it affects me. And also you. Your game's in a much more common casual setting without tournament rules. It is harder to win. The difficulty bar just got increased. You can buy Sororitas models in preparation for some undoing of nerfs and support me at the same time by buying things through my affiliates. It is cheaper than Games Workshop, and some of the money coming to me does not make the models more expensive to you. You can also buy non-Games Workshop products and models if that is your jam. They can still be found through the links. So the Adepta Sororitas right now are playable, but they are 40k on hard mode. You can win, but it is much more difficult than before. Anything less than bringing your A game and your best list brings you much closer to defeat. You can't try out a new unit because you're probably not going to play them with the meta tactic. And now the rest of your list is not the most on-meta it could be. So what can Games Workshop do to help me out? I mean, help out you, Sisters players. Basically, what will they do in the balance patch of spring 2025? Here are the options. Option 1 is do nothing. They might stick with this March update being points only for the Sororitas, or it may be a small tweak instead of the standard big changes balance patch. They still haven't given the Imperial Agents a real army rule. The Imperial Knights get both the Become Allies rule and their own army rule when fielded as their own faction, so we have a precedent for doing nothing for low-performing, low-attendance factions. The do-nothing approach isn't actually the worst option they could give Sororitas players. That'll come later. Option 2 is to reverse some or possibly all of the nerfs. They will probably keep the stratagem change, the Bringers of Flame, and the Triumph change. Undoing things so that we get more Miracle Dice will make the Champions of Faith more valid, as that seems to have been written with the prior amounts of Miracle Dice in mind. When you try running it, you have very difficult decisions to make on whether you try and boost up one of your units with the detachment rule, or you spend the Miracle Dice on the Palatine's Rapturous Blows, or getting a 6 to do something. Option 3 is to keep the Miracle Dice penalties and the Bringers of Flame penalties and go for a general points reduction. The Adepta Sororitas once again become a horde army. Maybe the Triumph of St. Catherine gets cheaper. It was 190 points at Codex launch, not 250 points. There still needs to be a points reduction on Repentia, who are almost never seen outside of the Penitent Host. They can work in the Hallowed Martyrs and the Champions of Faith, but get passed over for other units. The Christmas big box was Penitent Host themed, and the boxes are still available on the shelves. I'm not a fan of points reductions as a fix. If you had a set army, you now need to buy and build and paint more models to get back to the same points level as before. If you had a good army list and a few spare units, then that would normally give you some options of switching out units. If the points are reduced, you have your whole army, nothing but your whole army. If something isn't as optimal, then you notice it very quickly. And hey, your army isn't great, just take more models, is more a solution I would expect for the Imperial Guard or the Orcs. They are factions that tend towards hordes anyway. The Adepta Sororitas is semi-elite, becoming a horde of sisters in power armor that die very quickly and can't put out that much damage. That doesn't feel like sisters. That feels like Imperial Guard infantry, especially now they can have a 3+ save almost all of the time. Option 4 is more detachment changes. This could be in combination with other minor changes, like a couple of points changes. They could undo some of the penalties to the Bringers of Flame, or they could do that internal balance they mentioned and bring in more miracle dice, but only for, say, the Army of Faith. They could change the Champions of Faith to no longer need miracle dice to be discarded to activate your abilities. You pick a number of units to have the detachment bonus. This way of changing things would keep most of the nerfs, but provide some internal balance to detachments. Option 5 is a miracle dice full rework. People have been complaining about miracle dice being too strong, and now there are too few of them to operate. So there could be a big transition into becoming miracle points. Datasheet abilities are rewritten, enhancements and stratagems change. This becomes closer to the Chaos Space Marine prayers or the Dark Eldar Pain tokens. You get a number of miracle points. Palatine Rapturous Blows cost a miracle point. Using the Hospitaler's ability to bring back additional sisters costs a miracle point. Activating a unit in the Champions of Faith with the detachment rule is a miracle point. It could be something like the Ulthway style Psychic Detachment. The Fate dice were moved to this one detachment, but then they were changed to not be, oh yeah, you change a dice number. You get some stratagems you can use for free. I think that's more unlikely. We have seen big changes to army rules before with the Genestealer cult. They keep changing again and again. But if this was a change for the Adepta Sororitas, if that was coming, I would expect it in 11th edition or several months later once they've had more than a month or two of playtesting, which we are assuming they do. And if we don't have miracle dice to change the wound rolls to be high numbers and the damage rolls to be high numbers, how do we wound vehicles? We have melter weapons, but apart from against the lightest of vehicles, we're wounding on a 5. With the weapon that's meant to be good at hurting vehicles. What are we meant to do then? Rely on luck? We can't be playing a game of chance when there's dice involved. This would be the most extreme version. Option 6 is, no, it's the players who are wrong. They need to take more time to figure out how to use the Adepta Sororitas in this form. Also, the Exorcist goes up by another 20 points. As a faction, the Adepta Sororitas have often been sidelined, especially compared to Space Marines. We saw a lot of that at the end of 9th edition. Oh yeah, we'll undo all these changes and give the Space Marines more weapons for free, and they're cheaper. Adepta Sororitas did not get this. Maybe they've reached market saturation with Adepta Sororitas, that everyone who is ever going to buy a Sororitas army already has done so they don't need to make them the best on the tabletop, or even try. I'm getting too pessimistic. Let's try option 7, where all of our dreams come true. The points are reduced a little bit on Repentia, on the Exorcist, on the Triumph. All of the penalties, or almost all of the penalties, are undone, so we have all our miracle dice back and the Bringers of Flame operates almost exactly like before. We also get Celestians with guns! That's a new unit that's going to come out. Yep, definitely going to happen. They're going to have so many weapons, it's going to be great. But we know that the new Sisters of Battle kill team is Ecclesiarchy themed and doesn't have Battle Sisters. So no Celestians from kill team, which is the main way that armies are getting new units in this edition. Which of those 7 options do you think is the most likely to occur? You keep watching these videos, so you might as well click that subscribe button. And while we're at it, what other things am I expecting to see in the balance patch? I think the Genestealer cult will get nothing, as Games Workshop wants to see how the changes to Cult Ambush, again, work out. The Genestealer cult have seemingly come down in power, but also had some very good results. but they really should remake the stratagems about cult ambush in each detachment. They are duds. Some of them are expensive and do literally nothing. I also think the Brood Brothers Auxilia generally should have at least 4 of their stratagems redone. These are not worth the command points. These are not being used. When am I ever going to use this stratagem? It isn't worth the points. For the Deathwatch, I think that they're going to be pretty happy with the way the Deathwatch have worked out with their detachment and their units. We've seen a couple of little FAQs like, oh yeah, when it says mission tactics and we put it up there, you meant to only have that rule in the Deathwatch detachment. We forgot to mention that. But I believe the Indomitor kill team and the Deathwatch Terminators will probably go up in points, perhaps the Talonstrike kill team as well. The Space Marines had a big change to say Oath of Moment now gives you +1 to wound, a very powerful bonus, but if you're one of the Divergent chapters and include their units, like the Space Wolves, like the Blood Angels, like the Deathwatch, and include those keyword units, you don't get that bonus to Oath of Moment. Ultramarines are not one of those, so Ultramarines have been powering through so many armies. Perhaps Ultramarines will be listed as one of those armies that doesn't get the bonus Oath of Moment. And we've instead seen a trend in competitive scenes of the Bloodless Angels. So this will be an army that doesn't have any Blood Angels unit keywords, but uses a Blood Angels detachment. So a change to the rule to say, if you include units with these keywords, or detachments from these codexes or indexes, then you don't get the +1 to wound. The +1 to wound is really strong. The Blood Angels do not need it. I don't think the Adepta Sororitas will have any changes like that. It may just be a few points changes and a few Miracle Dice tweaks. That may be what we get. There is a bigger shake-up to points than you expect. We know that they're not doing 3-month points changes and a balance patch every 6 months. That was in an article and a Games Workshop Warhammer TV interview on Warhammer Plus, where it was also mentioned that there will be a fundamental shift in the policy of points. So in this next video, I explain the different ways points can be, the pros and cons of each way, and how I think Games Workshop will change how army construction points operate. My darlings and viewers, have a great day of 40k.